Hey everyone, Diavolo here, and in today's video, we're going over probably one of the most hyped fights in all of manga and of course, anime history. This here is the illustrious and freaking elastic, if you know what I mean, fight between the two emperors of the sea, Luffy and Kaido. Obviously, this is a huge battle that stops and starts over a literally massive length of time, with Luffy first meeting Kaido on the mainland, then like 80 chapters later, of course, up on Onigashima. But what we are going to do today is take out all of that unnecessary information in between fights so that we can form together, hopefully, what seems like a constant massive battle between Luffy and Kaido that also highlights some of the features and best moments throughout this arc as well. Of course, if you want more anime and manga story-styled explained content just like this, but for a variety of different series, perhaps like even all of Wano explained over a ridiculously long video, then make sure you hit that subscribe button and also be sure to leave a like on it as well, as it really helps out with YouTube's silly old algorithm and pushes my content to a bunch of new amazing people. But anyway, enough of that, let's get right into the midst of the battle. And when I say midst of the battle, I literally mean the freaking high-pass moment everyone had been waiting for, where Luffy finally spots Kaido after he annihilates Odens' castle with a gnarly-ass attack. Like, I can't remember the exact date when I saw this, but what I do remember is the absolute hype me and all of my mates felt when we first saw the dragon that was Kaido soaring throughout the sky. So, as we kick things off into the moments right before the first battle, we find Kaido literally passing right by Luffy and Law as he unleashes a devastating bolo breath at Odin's castle that completely obliterates it. Law then quickly notes that Luffy is no longer beside him, and the people of Kuri village watch as Luffy jumps over Kaido and uses his Gamu Gamu no elephant gun to hit the Emperor directly on his head, initiating the first conflict. Kaido's dragon form slams onto the ground after being hit in the head by Luffy. Reaching the ground, Luffy yells to his crew and asks if they managed to escape Kaido's attack. Luffy hears that several of Kaido's subordinates discover Lady Speed, who is heavily injured. Fearing for Tama's life, Luffy asks Speed if she was able to get Tama out of the city safely. He then learns that Kaido spotted them, and despite doing her best to protect Tama, Kaido had managed to injure them both with his attack. Angered by this, Luffy beats himself up for not going along with them and prepares to attack Kaido. Law frantically tells Luffy that they need to check on their respective crews and berates him for jeopardizing their plans, yet Luffy ignores Law and yells at Kaido, getting his attention. Even though Kaido is completely faded right now off the drinks that he's been drinking beforehand, he still recognizes Luffy and comments how he's finally arrived in Wano. He then unleashes another blast towards Luffy, incinerating the immediate area around him. However, Lady Speed is able to propel Luffy into the air towards Kaido's eye level. Immediately, Luffy activates Gear 3 and pummels Kaido with a volley of numerous punches. While down below, the remaining beast pirates are shocked to see Kaido taking such a tremendous beating, and he falls from the sky, transforming back into his human form. Luffy rushes forward, activating Gear 4 as he resumes his attack. However, Kaido gets back on his feet to the surprise of everyone. Glaring at Luffy, Kaido swings his Kanabo and strikes Luffy. Then seeming to dash forward, he mocks his revelation of becoming the Pirate King as Luffy soars through the air, knocked completely unconscious from the blow. So yeah, good old Luffy thought the recent gains he developed before Wano would have been enough to take down the big man himself, but obviously the completely faded Kaido off the sake he was drinking didn't even feel a punch from him, mainly just due to the almost catatonic state he was in. Okay, so with Luffy getting completely ganked, a whole bunch of super random Oda stuff happens in between the time that the first meet happens and the time that they arrive atop Skull Dome to finally face him. Like being taught by the absolute G Hirogoro while being stuck in Udon prison with another member of the supernova generation, the mentally unstable Eustace Kid, or what happens with Zoro and all of the other members of the Straw Hats during their time in preparation up till the main day. But yeah, we ain't going over any of that for now. Now, finally, after for what us manga readers seemed like an infinite amount of time, and probably as well for the anime side, Luffy and Zoro reach the roof of Onigashima along with Eustace Kid, Killer, and Law, where they confront Kaido and Big Mom, who are awaiting them. Luffy notices something and starts walking towards the two as Kaido tells Big Mom what Luffy told him previously, that he was going to be the Pirate King. Big Mom also adds how he talked back to her, so she wants an apology. God, I actually dislike Big Mom so much. I don't even know why. I honestly think it's just because her gross ass exterior is a representation of her messed up interior and the way that she thinks. Anyway, to their surprise though, Luffy ignores them and walks past them over to the Scabbards and Izo, who were defeated previously and left beaten on the floor. Kaido turns to look at Luffy and demands he say what he said to them previously to their faces. Luffy, however, continues to ignore them and instead apologizes to Kinemon for arriving late. He looks at the injured samurai and Kinemon distraughtly says that he can't leave things as they are, or he will never be able to face Odin in the afterlife. He asks Luffy to shoulder their burden and save Wano, who agrees, citing that it is the land of his friends. An annoyed Kaido proceeds to raise his club to strike Luffy, but Luffy asks Law to move everyone away with his devil fruit, which he does so. He then jumps back into the air, dodging Kaido's strike as he transforms into his Gear 3 state. As he does so, he thinks back to when the Mink tribe revealed that Raizo was safe and that they would never sell out their allies. Momonosuke's tears as he yelled that he wanted to take down Kaido, Kinemon revealing that he had travelled through time, Yasuo's execution, Hirogoro's tears of joy, and Kinemon revealing the truth of Odin's death. Then he proceeds to strike Kaido with an insane new ability, like it's so freaking clean, called Gamo Gamo no Red Rock, slamming him onto the ground and actually causing him to bleed. Big Dumb is left in disbelief at the sight of Kaido getting knocked down as Luffy introduces himself as the one who will surpass the two of them and become the Pirate King. Hearing this, Big Cum yells at Luffy for his declaration, saying he doesn't know what it means to be Pirate King. Zoro and Kid are surprised to see his punch work, and Killer says that they might actually have a fighting chance. Kaido, however, wonders what the hell happened after he defeated him back in Kuri, since he only knows a few people capable of fighting him. In that moment, he sees shadows of Odin, Whitebeard, Shanks, Roger, and Rocks behind Luffy, causing him to smirk with anticipation. Luffy uses his observation haki to foresee Kaido's Thunder Bagua, but it moves too fast and Luffy still ends up getting hit, though he is still able to stand this time, which Kaido admires. Big Mom tries to use Prometheus to attack Luffy, but Zoro ends up using Kinemon's Firefox style to cut Prometheus in half. As Prometheus reforges, Zoro reminds Luffy that they are fighting the two Emperors of the sea, so they can't afford to drop their guards. Before Kaido can strike Luffy again, Law uses Shambles to save him, bringing Luffy closer to Law. Big Mum has Prometheus fire balls of fire, which she calls heavenly bonbons. As the fireballs get closer, Luffy stupidly and cockily says whoever reacts first to the fireballs is a loser. Law and Kid refuse to play the game, which causes Luffy to call them both losers. However, both Zoro and Killer attack Kaido, who praises them for their strength, though Zoro realizes he needs to release more of Enma's power. Luffy, Law, and Kid get back up, and as Luffy goes into Gear 4th, Kid creates a huge suit of chunked metal and Law prepares a room. Kaido laughs and calls the three of them monsters in their own right, and as he says this, Luffy punches him with the Gamo Gamo no Kong gun. Kid hits him with Punk Vise and gets several large rocks dropped on him by Law's tact ability. After a brief pause, Kaido emerges from the rubble in his dragon form and joins Big Mom in the air, riding Zeus and Prometheus. Kaido tells the 5 pirates that it would be a shame for him to kill all of them, but he has no choice. He and Big Mom also plan on taking their crew, treasure, and poneglyphs, and says that whoever wins this battle will become one step closer to becoming the true Pirate King. Kaido uses his demolition gust to unleash several wind blades on the group, but Law uses his power to avoid them. Killer also jumps out of the way while Kid gets struck, but despite Killer's worry, Kid tells him he is okay since the golem is made out of junk that he can reattach. Zoro deflects the wind blade while Luffy dodges them, getting close to Kaido and striking him with Gamo Gamo no Kong rifle, which injures him again. Kid moves underneath Kaido and grabs his head with his robot, slamming him into the floor with Slam Gibson, which also causes him some pain. Law maneuvers around Kaido with his powers before stabbing him with a gamma knife, saying that while he has never seen the insides of a dragon before, he assumes his heart was where he stabbed. Kaido shakes them off and admits they learned how tough his defense is, acknowledging them as more than just mindless fools relying on guts. Killer starts running along Kaido's body, saying that he just needs to cut past his scales to the inside, then uses Scythosonic to damage him from the inside. However, Killer gets struck by Big Mom's Indra, who declares that as long as they are under the open sky, no one will escape from her. Kaido admits that the group is annoying, but before he can chomp on Killer, Luffy strikes him with Gamo Gamo no Reiner Schneider. Kaido prepares to use Bolo Breath again, but Zoro tells Law to move him into the air, which he does reluctantly. He cuts the fire with Blaze Slice to protect Luffy while using Hiryu and Kaien on Kaido. Jeez, I actually suck at Japanese names, by the way. Hence why I've tried using all of the Viz attacks in this story, in this battle going on right here. Big Mom warns Kaido to dodge because the sword Zoro was using is no ordinary sword. Unfortunately, Zoro missed his attack and ends up cutting off one of the horns atop of the skull dome, which is freaking insane, like Zoro out here straight up trying to murk Kaido before Luffy can. Zoro then gets struck by Big Mom's God of Lightning, Tenjin, while the others try to block it. Luffy gets struck as well, but comes out of it unscathed, much to Big Mom's confusion. Luffy yells to Big Mom that he is rubber, so her lightning will not work on him. He then tells her that she will pay for striking everyone the way that she did. But suddenly, Luffy gets hit by Kaido's Bolo Breath attack. To Kaido's equal surprise though, Luffy comes out unscathed as well, claiming that it was his guts that protected him. He then strikes at Kaido with the Gomu Gomu no Kong Gatling. Luffy finishes pummeling Kaido, knocking him into the ground as Big Mom watches in horror. After finishing, Luffy deflates and returns to normal, landing on the ground as the others watch. Kid asks when Kaido managed to strike him, but Law explains to Kid that what he has seen is the side effect of Luffy's Gear 4 form, and now he won't be able to use his Haki for 10 whole minutes. Kid acknowledges the cost of that strength, but says that as long as it did some damage to Kaido, it wouldn't matter. Big Mom laughs if that was the extent of Luffy's strength and uses Happy Mother's Blaze to attack him. Zoro, however, manages to grab him and save him from the attack as Big Mom demands he hand him over. Law gets in closer to Big Mom and uses his counter-shock ability to damage her. Kaido gets back up and sees Kid and Killer charging for him and unleashes his Dragon Twister ability to blow everyone away. Zoro comments that Kaido is practically a natural disaster as he loses his grip on Luffy, who flies into the air and gets chomped on by Kaido. Angry, Zoro demands Kaido release his captain as he unleashes his 3-sword style Black Rope Dragon Twister on Kaido, forcing him to release Luffy while getting damaged in the process. Kaido, who sensed the strange Haki he felt from before, again finally deduces that Zoro was indeed using Odin's sword, as the pain felt similar. Kaido decides to take on Zoro's Twister challenge as he unleashes a stronger variation of the Black Rope Dragon Twister called Tatsumaki Kaifu, which everyone tries to dodge. After this attack, it then skips away from the battle for a moment, leaving us with a complete sense of unknown until it returns. But as it returns, it now reveals Kaido, who's changed into his hybrid form as he tells Big Mom that this battle has started to get interesting, to which she agrees. Okay, like literally right after the hybrid Kaido reveal, it again flies around the battlefield, and in good old Oda fashion, he spends a nice amount of time building up everyone else's fight in unison with the main rooftop battle. During the time that it does skip away, the battle that is going on between Luffy and Kaido continues. So honestly, it is completely unknown almost what happened over this time. Other than that, they were definitely throwing some hands for sure. Anyways, back atop this skull dome now, Luffy, who has recovered over the last few minutes, is blown into a rock between Zoro and Kid. The two wonder how they are supposed to defeat the two emperors because it looks like none of their attacks are working. Luffy says that they are because Kaido and Big Mom are human, so they have to be feeling the pain of their attacks. He tries to attack again, but is blown back into the wall. Killer wonders how he can call the two of them human, but Luffy says that a losing attitude isn't going to help as Zoro demands he come up with a new plan. Law suggests that they try and split the two of them up, which Zoro and Kid agree with. As Kid says that fighting the two of them is like hell, Luffy says then if that is true, then he has been to hell and back a few times. From a distance, Kaido looks on at Luffy and tells him that his eyes never seem to lose their fire. Big Dumb suggests to Kaido that they use a combined attack to finish off the 5 pirates. Kid asks why Law cannot just use his devil fruit powers to send one of them away, causing Law to retort if he could he would have already, but the reason he cannot is because both of their Haki is too strong for him to move directly. Kid says that they will just have to tear them apart as Luffy warns everyone about an incoming attack. Kaido and Big Mom ready their weapons while insulting each other and unleash a flying attack called Conquest of the Seas. To their surprise, Zoro does his best to block the attack, telling everyone to run. The massive deflected attack destroys a chunk of the island, but all of them manage to survive the blast, which the two emperors notice. Law asks Zoro if he's okay, and he says he barely is. Kid tells Zoro that he was not able to buy them much time, but also thanks him for blocking the attack. Meanwhile, Luffy attacks Kaido. When Kaido dodges the punch, Luffy smiles and asks Kaido if he's dodging because he knows it can hurt him. Kaido swings at Luffy with his Kanabo, as Luffy uses Haki to protect himself. Kaido then fires a bowl of breath at Luffy, who dodges, but Kaido then jumps into the air and attacks Luffy with Conqueror of the Three Worlds Ragnaraku, slamming Luffy into the ground. After this happens, Kaido calls Big Mom pathetic for what is going on between her and the others, but he still charges for Zoro, demanding he release Prometheus. Law, however, uses his devil fruit to switch places with him, where he then uses injection shot on Kaido's throat. He uses Curtain to shield himself, but Kaido still blows him away while saying his powers are annoying. This opening does give Prometheus and Napoleon the gap to rush to Big Mom's aid. Seeing them injured, Law says that his plans aren't worth one of them dying, but Kid says that they have already succeeded in separating the two of them, as both him and Killer decide to take on Big Mom by themselves. Finally, we can get rid of Big Dumb out of this fight. Kaido laughs at how Luffy was glaring at him while unconscious, like back in Bakura Town. He starts talking about different ways to maim him, as Zoro tells Law that he has reached his limit, so his next attack will be his last. Zoro then coaches swords in Conqueror's Haki and performs his 9-sword style form, going on to attack Kaido with honestly one of the most hyped moments in all of 2021, hitting him with the Ashura blades drawn, Dead Man's Game. Kaido clutches his chest in pain while screaming out, asking Zoro if he has Conqueror's Haki. Zoro, who is literally just yoked and doesn't have a clue what he is talking about, falls down, saying that he had just hoped the attack would have brought Kaido down as well. Kaido, however, tells Zoro that his attack will definitely leave a scar on him. He raises his Kanabo to attack as Law tries to help Zoro avoid it. Kaido tells him it is too late and blows the both of them away with Thunder Bargawa. After defeating the two of them, Kaido says that if they had joined him, they could have taken over the world together. Suddenly, he hears Luffy telling him that they would never team up with him due to their friendship with the samurai. He thinks back to Hyogoro's training and advice on Haki and admits all the attacks he used on Kaido were shallow, but after being struck with his Kanabo, Luffy realized the truth. Kaido can infuse objects with Conqueror's Haki. Kaido laughs in confirmation as he charges at Luffy, revealing that only a select few powerful individuals on the planet can pull it off as he brings his club down on Luffy. However, Luffy, having worked out how to infuse Conqueror's Haki into his limbs, blocks the attack with his foot without even touching it. He then charges for Kaido and punches him in the gut without even touching him, before delivering an uppercut that sends him absolutely flying, slamming down onto his back. Seeing this, Law is left in absolute disbelief that Luffy did damage without actually touching Kaido. Luffy thanks both him and Zoro for covering him, but now they can go back down into the castle. He declares that he can handle the rest as he will defeat Kaido no matter what. After they leave, Kaido gets back up and smiles, telling Luffy that he seems to be enjoying this fight, and the higher the risk, the wider he smiles. The two of them charge at each other and clash with their Conqueror's Haki infused attacks. However, only after a few minutes of battling together again, which in typical Oda fashion has been hidden from us, Kaido stands alone as he remarks that Luffy let his new power go to his head. However, as the unconscious Luffy falls from Onigashima towards the ocean below, Kaido is actually regretful, as he notes that due to his failure to fully finish the pirate off publicly, his allies will still maintain their hope and belief in him. As Luffy falls off Onigashima and into the ocean, Kaido states that although the pirate managed to infuse his Conqueror's Haki, his usage of it was crude and clumsy, also going on to say that he supposes Luffy could not be JOYBOY. He then receives a call from Huang, who informs him that Momonosuke has been located. Kaido says that he will head to the boy immediately, and tells Huang to announce the result of his and Luffy's fight to all of Onigashima. So, after Luffy falls off Onigashima, he's luckily saved by the Heart Pirates, who just happen to be in the submarine down below, because you know, that's just their thing I guess, and of course we are going to skip past all of the stuff that happens in between and pretty much pick up on things right after the moment that my king, Big Luffy, is about to ride his boy, the now adult Momonosuke back up to the island. From this point on, things get ultra Oda style wacky and wild, with some of the most insane and hype stuff to come out of One Piece in literally years, and I mean freaking years. Like, it probably ain't been this hype for real since like Marineford, or at least as someone who's binged the series in quick succession like a crackhead after getting heavily addicted to Luffy's spell back in 2019, this has been the most hype for me so far, and I definitely think that I'm not alone here. Anyways, let's get back to this baddie. Down in Togake port, below an approaching Onigashima, the Heart Pirates panic when they see what appears to be Kaido in his dragon form. But Luffy, who was standing in front of the dragon, realizes it is actually Momonosuke. While crying, Shinobu explains that she gave in to Momonosuke's request and matured his body by 20 years. When Luffy asks why she is crying, Shinobu says it is because after her ability, Momonosuke now appears identical to someone of great importance. Nevertheless, Luffy asks Momonosuke to help him take back Wano together, what she accepts. After probably what felt like an eternity for Luffy, he finally gets Momonosuke to start flying and he immediately starts heading towards Onigashima. Unfortunately for Luffy, he learns that Momonosuke is flying with his eyes closed, causing him to accidentally crash into the live floor and shocking everyone present. Having lost complete control, Momonosuke starts flying everywhere and tearing up the castle, even breaking through the second floor and surprising Kid, Law, and Big Mom. They eventually do reach the third floor as the Beast Pirates, along with everyone else, clamour in confusion over the presence of a second dragon. Eventually, the two reach the top of Skull Dome, just as Yamato, who while Luffy was away had been fighting, has reverted back to normal and charges at Kaido with divine swiftness White Serpent. At the same time, Momonosuke starts to land and Luffy goes into his Gear 4th, Snake Man, immediately striking at Kaido with Gamo Gamo no Jet Culverin. Both attacks end up hitting Kaido simultaneously, while at the same time, Luffy and Yamato greet each other, with Luffy thanking Yamato for keeping Kaido busy. Kaido recovers and turns into his dragon form, questioning how Luffy is still alive and who the new dragon is. Luffy yells to Kaido that he won't die because he will be the Pirate King, and Momonosuke introduces himself, surprising everyone as Kaido tells Momonosuke that the world does not need another dragon. Luffy tells Momonosuke something before jumping into the air and striking Kaido with Gamo Gamo no Elephant Gun, knocking him onto the ground. Momonosuke thinks about Luffy's request, which was for him to take a cheeky bite out of Kaido. And after thinking about the horrible things Kaido had done to him, he garners the courage to bite down on Kaido's booty, causing him to howl out in pain. Momonosuke tightens his grip on Kaido as he asks him what he is doing, but still while afraid, Momonosuke refuses to back down. Luffy then comes in and strikes Kaido with a Conqueror's Haki coated fist. He then calls to Momonosuke and points out that he just bit down on one of the 4 emperors. He asks if he is still afraid of anything after doing something so freaking insane, and Momonosuke realizes that he no longer is. Luffy then tells him to stop Onigashima in its tracks while he promises to beat Kaido himself. The Alliance and Samurai, who have been watching this, react with happiness at the revelation that Momonosuke is still alive and cheers Luffy on. While elsewhere, Big Lump laughs at Luffy's claim, and Kaido still expresses disbelief at the idea of him having any kind of chance against them. Kaido and Luffy then attack one another with their Conqueror's Haki, not even touching one another, but causing the freaking heavens to literally split apart. Like, this proves that Luffy is bloody god tier now. It's like literally just like the day Shanks met Whitebeard upon his ship. It's such an amazing show of growth, and I love to see him grow like this. Near this, Yamato and Momonosuke watch in awe at Luffy and Kaido's clash. This causes Yamato and Momonosuke to remember Odens writing about how Roger and Whitebeard's clash split the heavens. He is a freaking god now, boys. Our little Luffy has ascended to the biggest of big leagues now, guys. Luffy calls to Yamato to help Momonosuke, and she agrees, jumping on Momonosuke's head. Kaido refuses to let them go anywhere and charges for the both of them. Yamato tries to encourage Momonosuke to get going, which he eventually does, but only as Yamato ends up blocking an attack from her father. Seeing this, Luffy wraps his legs around Kaido's neck in an attempt to hold him back, and Yamato quickly realizes that Luffy wants a one-on-one with Kaido. So with that, she and Momonosuke jump off Onigashima. So as per our father Oda's writing, it's skipped away for us poor manga readers from the main battle for like 2 months here, and I'm pretty sure it'll be the same with when the anime does actually get to the spot, if not longer due to filler and all that kind of stuff that the anime loves to do. But when we finally did get back to it, it's almost uninterrupted hands until the final moment of the battle. So yes, on top of the Skull Dome, Luffy and Kaido continue to fight, and as Luffy is struck by Kaido's club, he manages to sneak a punch in and sock him with Gamo Gamo no Rock Gun. This causes them both to fall to the ground and get back up laughing with smiles on their faces, as they both confess they are having a lot of fun. Skipping forward slightly to the point where Kaido has now returned to his human form and actually started drinking, it begins to annoy Luffy, but he tells him that he's drinking because he's having fun, and it reminds him of the banquet they were originally having before everyone ruined it. After Kaido smashes back his drink, he goes into his lightning hammered mode, and Luffy, while still annoyed, charges at him, hoping he doesn't use getting drunk as an excuse if he loses. Kaido, however, clarifies that he drank because it would make him stronger, as he has finally acknowledged Luffy's power. In his drunken state, Kaido dodges an attack from Luffy and counters with Drunken Dragon Bargawa and Lightning Hammered Ragnaraku, changing back into his hybrid form and slamming Luffy into the ground, with chunks of the roof falling onto the people still inside the castle. Luffy clutches his head in pain as Kaido becomes a full-on Depresso Dragon, going into his Drowning Sorrows mode, lamenting on how half the castle and island are destroyed because of his inability to protect it, and how it will take another 5 years to rebuild everything. Luffy begins charging at him again, but Kaido uses Dragon Twister Demolition Breath to blow him back. Then as he goes into his hybrid and tears in his bears mode, he attacks Luffy with Thunder Bargawa, but Luffy dodges it and kicks him square in the face with a Conqueror's Haki coated foot. Though he draws blood, Kaido suddenly grabs Luffy with his tail and brings him forward to his face as they both headbutt each other with Conqueror's Haki. Sadly, Luffy is overwhelmed and blown back as he admits that Kaido's Haki is growing stronger. Kaido then literally phases into drunken rage mode as his array of different emotions fly through, and he gets mad at Luffy for starting to sober him up. He fires a blast of energy at him, but Luffy dodges and he charges at him with Gomu Gomu no Rock Gatling, while Kaido counters with Kundali Dragon Swarm. Both attacks clash, with Luffy and Kaido getting hit by each other's abilities. However, our boy gets a cheeky one in and manages to strike Kaido square in the stomach. By the way, I should mention this here, at the same time as this battle, both Kid and Law are out double teaming Big Dumb, about to pile drive her ass into the inner part of the planet. Anyway, don't worry about that. I can do that in another video if you want or something, someday. On the roof, after Luffy and Kaido's clash, Kaido deduces, based on the shockwave nearby, that Big Cum had been beaten by Kid and Law, which Luffy praises the two of them for. Kaido thinks back to the day he first met her on the Rock's crew. Luffy, however, goes into his Gear 4 Snake Man and uses Gomu Gomu no Hydra to strike Kaido in multiple places. Luffy screams at him that his dreams starve the people of Wano, and with all the energy he has, he is going to make sure he'll never come back to this country. Kaido is continuously pummeled by Luffy's attack, and when he blocks one punch, he gets hit in 3 more spots. He admits his attacks are hurting him as he realizes that Luffy is altering the trajectory of his punches at a whim. He once again tells him that his attacks hurt as he goes into his drunken beggar mode, which angers Luffy at the fact that he is still drunk. Kaido then goes into his drunken thief mode and transforms into his full dragon form, where he then bites and swallows Luffy in an attempt to escape the onslaught. He flies up into the air, and once he's high enough, he opens his mouth, letting Luffy fall and also firing a bolo breath at him. The attack piercing straight through the island below and blowing Luffy down through that hole. Luffy, however, escapes the blast and changes into his Bound Man form to fly back up to Kaido. He declares that this is his last Gear 4 and he no longer has any time to waste to beat him. He yells to Kaido that the people of Wano will continue to starve and go thirsty as long as he remains here. He then prepares to use the move Gomu Gomu no Overkongan. As for Kaido, he tells Luffy that while it's his business who he teams up with, he personally considers the people of Wano weak and hopeless, citing the samurai as losers who would willingly die for the sake of honor. Luffy retorts that the samurai are strong, but Kaido rejects this notion as he prepares another bolo breath. However, Luffy fires his attack first, causing Kaido to misfire inside of his own mouth and crash to the ground. Luffy charges at him again, but Kaido quickly gets back up and hits him with Thunder Below Bargawa, causing Luffy to crash. Steam starts to eject from his mouth, but Luffy tries to force it in as Kaido goes into his bloodthirsty drunk mode. Both charge at each other again, with Gomu Gomu no Overkongan and Thunder Below Bargawa. But randomly, someone I haven't mentioned that's been sneaking around the entire time, the CP0 agent finally arrives and grabs Luffy's arm, using Tekai in the process to hold him back. Though Kaido sees him, he is unable to stop himself from striking Luffy, while the agent steps back, causing Kaido to phase into a flashback where he remembers how Odin was distracted by Higurashi during their fight, and as a look of horror is shown in his eyes, the attack connects. Kaido's attack causes Luffy's Gear 4 to finally wear off, and as he returns to normal, he lands on the ground unconscious once again, with Momonosuke even realizing he can't hear his voice anymore. Though Kaido was named the victor, he was livid that history repeat itself again, with him achieving victory due to another person's interference. He walks over to the CP0 agent and asks if he is prepared to face the consequences for his actions. The agent says nothing as Kaido brings his Kanabo down on him. With the realization that the battle is over, Kaido descends the castle in his dragon form, declaring to the samurai that Luffy is dead and to make Momonosuke step forward and surrender to him. The beast pirates cheer for Kaido's victory, while the samurai despair, with even Kid and Law acknowledging this bitter turn of events, while those like Chopper and Tama cry for the loss of Luffy. Nami refuses to believe Kaido's words, even revealing herself to him to say so. He fires a bolo breath at her, but luckily one of the coolest designed dudes in One Piece, Uncle Marco, shows up and blocks her, while yelling for everyone to not give up until it is over. Kaido then declares that Onigashima will drop on the flower capital, and unlike Orochi, he is going to put everyone who lives in Wano to work to produce weapons. His words cause the samurai's morale to waver as he once again demands Momonosuke presents himself. When it comes to Momonosuke, he decides that surrendering might even be the best option for everyone if Luffy can't beat him anymore, but Yamato retorts that even if surrendering may save everyone present, eventually they will all die from exhaustion as Kaido's slaves, and because of that she won't stop fighting, even claiming that Kaido is at his limit too. She also reminds Momonosuke that this battle carries 20 years worth of weight on the people of Wano, so with that, she would rather die than surrender. Momonosuke accepts her words, and the battle rages on, with him stopping pulling the island away to rejoin the fight. Suddenly, oh, you ain't ready for this one yet. If you're an anime only, oh my freaking god, you were about to insta-nut. Zunisha, you know that big ass elephant thing who walks through the ocean, speaks to Momonosuke and tells him that it can hear the drums of liberation for the first time in 800 years and proclaims that freaking JOYBOY has returned, just as Luffy starts to smile and steam starts coming out of his mouth while an unknown substance starts to envelop him. Which it sounds so bad when you put it in that context right at the end. Unknown substance, eh bro? As Luffy's heartbeat beats like a drum, he wonders how he is able to stand despite having lost his fights with Kaido, and also wonders how he is having so much fun. Momonosuke meanwhile has told Yamato what Zunisha had told him, that Luffy is JOYBOY. In the pleasure hall's right brain tower, the sound of Luffy's heartbeat wakes Sanji, who immediately calls his name. Elsewhere, all throughout the castle, people hear Luffy's heartbeat, with some of them, like Nami and Tama, crying tears of joy that he is still alive. Back with our hyped ass noodle-haired boy, their battle now resumes with Kaido stating that he was sure Luffy had died, to which the latter agrees. He watches Luffy bounce off the ground repeatedly and deduces that he has awakened his paramecia devil fruit since he is able to turn his surroundings into rubber. Kaido notes that something does not add up, as Luffy's transformation should be more reminiscent of a Zoan user. Kaido lunges at Luffy and attempts to devour him, but Luffy bounces around in his insides using Gummo Gummo no Bellefant to actually expand not only his body, but Kaido's as well. Yamato and Momonosuke, who are sitting, bearing witness to the work of the gods, are confused by what they are even seeing, wondering if Kaido was getting fatter or if it was just one of his forms. While Kaido becomes frustrated with his body gaining the properties of rubber and gum, Luffy sees two lights from inside him, which turn out to be his eyes. He grabs through them to latch onto his nose before using Gummo Gummo no escape rocket to free himself from Kaido's body. He then begins to deflate, which sends him bursting up into the clouds, but instantly he re-emerges through them as the size of a giant by using Gummo Gummo no Giant, much to everyone's astonishment. Kaido once again bites Luffy, but the latter takes advantage of his size and Kaido's serpentine form, using Gummo Gummo no Jump Rope to use Kaido's body as a freaking jump rope. Like, dude's gone from dead to pretending Kaido is a skipping rope. It is actually insane. As they descend back towards the rooftop, Kaido fires another bolo breath at Luffy, which hits him directly and causes him to fall again. However, Luffy becomes more frustrated and begins spinning his legs so fast that he's able to run across the air to return to the rooftop. Bro can do anything now. As he prepares another attack, Kaido strikes at him with Conquerors of the Three Worlds Ragnaraku, sending Luffy's head crashing through the ground and to the lower floors, much to everyone's shock. Luffy then pulls himself back up through to the roof and begins to revert back to his normal form, showing that he becomes extremely fatigued and visibly ages after using Gear 5. Kaido assures him that he can actually die and someone will share the story of this fight, but Luffy refuses, stating that all that is left after dying is bones. Yamato and Momonosuke say that it is really Luffy, but his hair and clothes turning white made him almost impossible to recognize. As he prepares to reactivate Gear 5, Luffy reminds himself of several people he has made promises to, or is indebted to, such as Momonosuke, Tama, Kinemon, and Pedro. Kaido tells Luffy though to be careful or he will die, but Luffy refuses to be afraid and tells his heart to start beating even louder, allowing him to reactivate Gear 5. He is suddenly struck again by Kaido's Kanabo, but this time his head wraps around its weapon and the spikes, causing it to take a crescent-like shape. He begins running away in pain, but another blow from Kaido squashes him to the ground. Yet Luffy uses the ground as a springboard to launch himself back up and towards a rock formation, which he once again launches himself off of to return to his normal size. Kaido, standing there watching this, still trying to make sense of Luffy's new fighting style, watches as Luffy approaches him with his arms spinning like helicopter blades. Luffy strikes Kaido with a punch that seemingly goes through his head before knocking him to the ground, while remarking how fun this fight is. Luffy ponders what to call his latest attack as Kaido picks himself back up. He asks Luffy who he is, just as Zunisha reminisces to himself how familiar Luffy's heartbeat feels, and comfortably reassures JOYBOY that they can put their trust in him, while at the same time Luffy proclaims his name and declares himself as the man who will surpass him and become the Pirate King. Kaido remarks how cheeky Luffy still sounds and tells him that it is because of his awakening. He also acknowledges how much he's lost during this war, though feels Luffy has lost a lot too, but Luffy retorts saying he will take everything back that Kaido has stole. Kaido then uses Kundali Dragon Swarm on Luffy, while Luffy retaliates with several punches that expand through Kaido's body. Kaido then notices that fumes have reached the top and realizes that the entire castle has caught fire, which means the alliance will burn to death, but Luffy confidently assures him he can trust them to handle the situation, just as he dodges a demolition gust attack. Over with Yamato, she tells Momonosuke that Kaido is reaching his limit and he won't be able to sustain his flame clouds for much longer, which means he has to produce his own flame clouds now or else Onigashima will fall. As she says that, Luffy grabs a bolt of goddamn lightning out of the sky like he's a now, preparing to bring it down on Kaido as he watches from below, encouraging Luffy to actually attack him with it. Like, this fight is so freaking good, man, it's so cool. Kaido remarks on how Luffy was able to actually grab lightning, as Luffy uses a new move called Gamogama no Thunderbolt and hurls the lightning directly at Kaido. Kaido, however, sidesteps it and smacks Luffy with his Kanabo, sending him flying off, only for Luffy to grab another lightning bolt and swing around it like Vic Star in the club and back at Kaido with his inflated leg. Before he can use another move though, Kaido dodges and strikes Luffy on the head, where he declares that in the end a strong devil fruit power isn't enough to conquer the seas, revealing that Goldie Roger himself had no devil fruit power, yet he was still able to become the Pirate King. Luffy gets propelled down onto the ground from the attack, which bounces him back up, and as he tries to defend himself, Kaido yells that to conquer the seas, the one thing that truly matters is Haki. He then hits Luffy with the Destroyer of Death Thunder Bagua, which injures him, but somehow he still grabs Kaido and starts dragging him up into the sky with him, only for Kaido to try and shake him loose while changing into his full dragon form to blast him with Dragon Twister Demolition Breath, acknowledging that even with his awakened power, he's still weak to slashing attacks. While that's going on, the people of the Flower Capital watch their sky lanterns float up into the air with the hope that their wishes will reach the heavens, as they know they will return to being slaves tomorrow. Kaido then blasts Luffy with a bolo breath to get him to let go while demanding he gets back down to the ground. Now back down on the roof, Luffy tells Momonosuke to get the island out of the way, as he inflates his hand to a humongous size coated in haki in an attempt to finally finish Kaido. Momonosuke though tells Luffy that he can't move Onigashima out of the way, but the memory of his family compels him to try anyway. Kaido tells Luffy that he will attack head on as he starts covering himself in fire, a move called Flame Dragon Torch. While doing so, he tells Luffy that Odin died 20 years ago by burning to death, and ever since then, Wano became a lawless land filled with people desperately waiting for their savior to appear. The fire causes Luffy to let go, which Kaido says is the right call, and that he had no intention of running, as it was because he was confident Luffy wouldn't be able to crush him with his fist and he would vaporize it first. Kaido then performs a move called Rising Dragon Flame Bagawa as Luffy uses his Gear 5th Gamo Gamo no Badragon gun, all the while thinking back to when Hyakuro taught him advanced armament haki, and in that moment, the two attacks clash. Quickly skipping away to the inside of the castle, Orochi, still on fire, tries to attack Hiyori, but Denjiro, my favourite out of the scabbards, arrives in time and slices Orochi's final head off, ending the psychotic Shogun's reign for good. Surprisingly, one of the wishes that was written on the sky lanterns I just spoke about before was please make Orochi disappear, while another is free us all from this hell, which Luffy is still currently working on in his clash with Kaido. As the two continue clashing, Kaido commends Luffy for making it this far, but he believes he can never change the world. However, now that Kaido's flames have completely disappeared, it means the island will soon fall. Kaido then asks Luffy what kind of world he wants to make, just as Momonosuke finally produces his own flame clouds and begins supporting the island. As for Luffy, he tells Kaido that he wants to create a world where his friends can eat as much as they like, and as he says this, his fist tears through Kaido's dragon form and punches him directly in the face, sending him straight and deep into the ground below Wano, finally ending the long conflict that has probably taken a lot more than the Straw Hats ever possibly expected, and people in the general community outside of like anime and manga. This has been going on for years and it has finally come to an end. So shout out to Oda for this freaking amazing fight, man. It was unreal. It was like completely unreal. Instantly after, Momonosuke drops Onigashima at a safe distance from the flower capital and passes out at almost the exact same time as Luffy passes out from complete exhaustion. Over with Kaido, who's now slumped in his hole, he remarks how he told King in the past that JOYBOY is the man who will no doubt defeat him, though King confidently believed he would never appear. Well, I think King may have been a little freaking wrong about, that one, obviously. Honestly, this arc in general was just amazing and jam-packed with some of the most hyped parts of the entire One Piece story so far. And I doubt unless something completely insanely major happens sometime soon, like in the next year or so, nothing will take this place as being one of the greats until probably the last few of the series, with Shanks, Blackbeard, and probably a bunch of those old dudes who sit around together. I can't remember their damn names. I just suspect those old geezers are going to be strong as hell, as if you know any kind of mangaka, they either love making children overpowered as hell or putting your granddad on that demon level of strength. Like, just look at Garp or pretty much any old dude in One Piece. They are goated strength wise. Anyway, I hope you all have enjoyed the video, and if you want more stuff just like this and you want me to cover more One Piece content in general, let me know down in the comment section below and try and smash this video to 5k likes or something, and if we get to there, then 100% I will do more One Piece content and probably cover all of Wano or something like that. But anyway, for now it's been your professional degenerate Diavolo, and I'll see you all in a bit. Bye.